Africans cannot demand a seat at the American table when we have failed to build our own global platforms. The truth is, until we build and uplift our own global platforms, we are playing on their stage by their rules. Culture is designed to cultivate values and better life structures, which in turn make life transformative for its people. The lives of many artists in Africa do not get the opportunity to be recognized in Africa and the global stage. Only a selected few gain success. There are a lot of gatekeepers within the African media industry. There's a whole lot of politics that are at play. There's a tendency for Africans to seek validation from the West. We are quick to dance at the opportunity to take that flight to the global stage for the purpose of reaching a global market. Once one of our own gets some sort of recognition on the global stage, we feel as though the person has accomplished something so great, meant for historical documentation, a successful milestone. And the reality is, it is most deaf. What is disheartening about this whole discourse is that we fail to point out the lack of opportunities we do not cultivate for our people. Again, culture is supposed to be transformative. Where are the investments in art for our people, by our people? Most artists, including actors, would jump at the opportunity to catch that flight and leave the continent in search for greener pastures away from home. We often hear that American music has African roots. Fair enough, but America took that influence and turned it into the global standard that it is today. They have built a blueprint that we as Africans keep trying to replicate instead of building something uniquely our own. The global music industry is predominantly American, with its own set of rules and structures. African artists navigating the system often do so within a framework that wasn't designed with them in mind. Even though they make a splash internationally, they do so under the specs of a system that primarily benefits Western entities. This entire setup can limit how authentically African artists can express themselves on a global stage. The West is still trying to navigate this integration. I'm not shocked that Tyla won the Afrobeats award, whereas she does Amapiano. Let's be honest, Tyla deserves to be in that category because of the sales her song Water generated. And this was her first VMA. Tyla has been dominating these award shows and has been winning through and through. There isn't space for an Amapiano category yet because who is making the same waves as she is in the Amapiano scene currently? She doesn't have global competition in the American scene. Amapiano is doing well. However, Afrobeats has a wide range of artists competing for these global awards. And with that being said, because she's the only one who has amassed that form of global success in the Amapiano genre, they decided to put her in the Afrobeats category with other Nigerian artists because they cannot create an Amapiano category just yet.
People are gonna see me everywhere. So if you don't like me, I'm sorry.
Tyla fits perfectly into a mold the West loves. Just enough Africanness to be exotic, but not too much to make her unmarketable. This doesn't make her less authentic. Let's not pretend that her rise to stardom wasn't curated. Her PR team works overtime, and it's clear she's aiming to be a mega star. She wants to hit the same heights as American icons, and that requires more than just talent. It's about strategy. To those claiming that Tyla is facing jealousy and xenophobia, let's pause for a moment. Come here, Brutang. Come closer. Why would the West be jealous when she's playing perfectly into their hand, fitting right into their standards of beauty? She checks all the boxes when it comes to features, hair textures, and skin tone that Western audiences easily embrace. Honestly, they were obsessed with her when they thought she was black. Wild. I mean, come on, even a 5-year-old could see that she's mixed. The decline in interest in Tyla, I stand to be corrected, started after her interview at the Breakfast Club. Her PR team is hands-on, but they fumbled on this one. They took an L.
School me on these debates that they be having about your identity as a South African colored person. What does that even mean?
Can we not? Por favor.
Oh, I like that. We keeping that in the interview too.
I watched the interview for the sake of this video, and man, it was clear that they did not prepare her properly for the interview, especially considering who was interviewing her. Charlemagne has a reputation for being brutal.
Your face was the Bible, it would be the Old Testament. You got to show and prove by actions and deeds, not words and lip service. People know you for playing yourself, walking up on stage with Jay-Z and Alicia Keys.
Charlemagne, seriously,
that's the truth.
Tyla is a foreign girl in the States trying to break into the American market. And the whole point of these interviews is to introduce her to a new audience. But instead of making a powerful impression, the interview exposed some cracks in her media training. The purpose of these interviews is simple. They are meant to promote the artist, give them a platform to share their music, upcoming projects, and achievements with a wider audience. They are also supposed to build a personal connection with fans, making the artist more relatable. Unfortunately, that fell apart when Tyla dodged the question about her racial identity. For someone so proud of her heritage, why shy away from educating a new audience about her background, especially knowing the weight the term carries in America? Had she answered that question openly, a lot of the controversy around her identity would have been avoided. Knowledge is power after all, and she missed a golden opportunity to share hers. Spreading knowledge and information with the intention to educate and spread a different perspective has never harmed anyone. The interview's purpose is for brand awareness. The artists are there to establish their image, style, and personality, making them more relatable and memorable. That interview was cringe even for me. Her answers were vague. She didn't get into detail about why her tour was cancelled, that injury, what caused that, despite Charlemagne declining their request to not ask her a list of questions they curated. They still made her appear on that interview. Why? Because she very much so needed the exposure. They are pushing her into the global stage, and the Breakfast Club is great for PR. Her appearance on the Breakfast Club sparked a wave of controversy around her identity and heritage. Tyla later clarified on the socials that she is proud of her heritage, emphasizing that she identifies as both colored within the South African context and black outside South Africa. She also highlighted how racial classifications differ globally, which has added complexity to the public's perception of her identity. She could have said this on the interview, but okay. The episode exemplifies how global African artists like Tyla are often caught in the crossfires of cultural misunderstanding and expectations when transitioning into the American stage. The criticism Tyla faced is likely tied to the way Americans interpret race, which doesn't always align with how it's understood in South Africa or by the rest of the world. I personally think that she could have used this opportunity to educate the mandem. Like, I'm not saying all of this to criticize Tyla's hustle. She's clearly got her eyes on global stardom. Her trajectory highlights a larger issue of African artists conforming to Western standards to succeed internationally. And that brings us to the bigger picture. The Western tendency to generalize African music. We've got Afrobeats, Amapiano, High Life, Maskandi, Kizomba. There's so much more, but instead of celebrating that diversity, the global stage often lumps it all into one category. Tyla, a South African artist, won an Afrobeats award. While that's great for her exposure, it's also telling of how poorly the Western industry understands the nuances of African music. Africans have been commanding attention on the global stage for decades, and each bringing something unique to the table. Burna Boy, for example, stands out with his overt confidence, dominating every stage he steps on. So what is it about Tyla's personality that sets her apart, making her presence feel different from the African megastars who came before her? There's something there that we're missing, perhaps something subtle yet significant, and as her fellow Africans, we're quick to rush to her defense, maybe out of our own biases, because she is one of our own. The reality is, once an artist steps onto the global stage, they open themselves up to criticism, hate, and sometimes brutal judgment. That is the price of chasing global stardom. American artists too get dragged on social media by their own people. It's part of the package deal. Tyla, without a doubt, has set her sight on mega stardom, aiming to reach the heights of American stars. That kind of ambition requires a certain persona, a blend of South African charm we all know and love, with an added edge needed to break into international markets. There's clearly an extra layer of flair to her personality, something beyond the typical South African demeanor, and we all can see it. She's got that it factor she's cultivating for the world stage, but in doing so, she's also becoming subject to the harsher realities that come with being in the limelight. Okay, I am going to admit that I do not listen to Tyla, and no, do not come for me for, oh, you do not support other African artists. Like, I wasn't aware of her for the longest time. Majority of us weren't. I'm not on TikTok, so her rise wasn't on my radar. When I did discover her, I was genuinely amazed. Seeing a South African colored girl getting that much exposure was something we haven't really witnessed in this generation. The last time a South African woman had this level of visibility was in the 1960s. Miriam Makeba. She held it down for the girlies at that time. It's been fascinating to see Tyla's journey unfold on the global stage. Her music is pretty good. I'm judging from the 3 songs I've heard on mainstream radio. Her music is just not my cup of tea. And yes, I do believe we have female artists in South Africa whose music surpasses Tyla's. But here's the thing. For the West, Tyla is a much easier sell than the average South African girl. She fits neatly into the beauty standards that the West has built. It's clear that Tyla has a great team behind her. Again, a 5-year-old can see beyond the calculation that is behind her personality. And then there's the complexity of her identity. Tyla can't afford to be fully colored in a way we know the term in South Africa, because that would mean representing a small 8% minority. She has to embody something broader. Her personality doesn't give average colored girl. Her persona is that of a black Joburg South African hun. Now we enter the African struggle to be authentic on the global stage chat. Let's face it, African artists often find themselves in a tightrope act when stepping onto the American global stage. The clash between staying true to their cultural roots and conforming to Western expectations can be a complex and challenging balancing act. Why does this struggle exist? Number uno, Western standards and cultural translation. The global entertainment industry, with America at its helm, sets the benchmark for beauty, sound, and style. For African artists, this means navigating a landscape where they often have to fit into predefined Western molds. Take Tyla, for instance. Her image and music have to align with Western beauty standards and commercial taste, which can sometimes dilute the essence sense of her African identity. This isn't just about aesthetics, it's about how African culture is perceived and accepted globally. Yes, she represents Amapiano, however, there are also elements of R&B and pop present in her music. The music is heavily influenced by American culture. Secondly, to succeed on a global scale, artists often have to cater to the tastes of major markets like the US. This commercial pressure can push African artists to adapt their music, sometimes at the expense of their cultural authenticity. While genres like Afrobeat and Amapiano are rich with African heritage, artists might blend their sounds with Western pop or R&B to reach a broader audience. It's a strategy that works but raises questions about whether these artists are compromising their roots for global success. Which is a definite yes, because it's all about the money. But my question is, why categorize these type of music as African music when it truly doesn't represent African music? Take these two songs for example. This song is less likely to become a commercial success, whereas the song
Mommy tryna touch the whole game. Must be easy. What's your friend's name? Way too easy. Militant man. Nick Freeze. I'm in Gauteng. Gotta keep teasing.
has the potential of becoming loved globally because it contains a lot of Western elements to it. True authentic African music will not have the amount of mainstream clout without the integration of Western elements. Tokenism and representation. When an African artist achieves global fame, they are often seen as a representative of the entire continent, a daunting and limiting role. The media and the industry might box them into a singular narrative of Africanism that doesn't fully capture the continent's diverse cultures. A common complaint among Africans is how the West tends to lump all African music into one generalized category. But honestly, how can we expect better if we ourselves do not recognize and celebrate our own African artists? To me, constantly asking for inclusion in Western spaces seems misplaced, especially when we fail to create our own platforms for recognizing the incredible talent across the continent. We can't feel entitled to Western award shows when we are not even prioritizing our own. Our population across the globe is significantly high, yet our local artists still struggle for support. Our money is funneled into Western brands, movies, and all things deemed modern or civilized. A lingering mindset from the colonial era. Yes, I went there. I just had to. Everything connects. Colonialism conditioned us to accept everything Western as superior, and the mentality still affects us today. Instead of begging for validation from Western platforms, we should be investing in and cultivating our own. Let's create systems of recognition where African artists can thrive on their terms, gain that amount of success from us. From Africa to the world. Like the same way the West ensures that we are bombarded with their media, we should take our media global. Let's invest in taking our media global. Nigeria is trying, South Africa is trying as well. However, it seems as though all the movies that we're seeing published in South Africa are always released through the medium of Netflix, at least the big movies in South Africa right now. And for me, it's like, until we get ourselves into that position, we shouldn't argue that we deserve a seat at someone's table when we haven't even built our own. Final thoughts. I mean, I've seen the chat from both sides, and from what I'm understanding, the American chat regarding Tyla fits into a much larger conversation about the entertainment industry's long-standing tendency to push racially ambiguous women over dark-skinned black women. This isn't new. For decades, there has been a noticeable preference for lighter-skinned women with looser hair textures in music, film, and modeling, which many attribute to Western beauty standards rooted in colorism. Tyla, with her talent, is benefiting from these biases, but it's crucial to understand that the issue isn't Tyla herself. It's the industry's structural bias. The frustration from the black community in America stems from this continuous cycle. Rihanna, the queen, has often been considered racially ambiguous due to her lighter skin and features. These women's talents are undeniable, but the underlying issue is that time and again, black women with darker skin tones are pushed onto the sidelines, while lighter skinned or racially ambiguous women are given more opportunities to thrive. Tyla is navigating that same space. The black community in America has grown tired of seeing this pattern repeat. They want to see more dark-skinned black women in the spotlight because the truth is, representation matters. When young black girls only see lighter-skinned women or racially ambiguous women being uplifted, it reinforces the idea that their beauty or talent is less valuable. I mean, it's not Tyla's fault that she benefits from these biases. After all, she's just trying to make her way as an artist. She's getting the bread. But the frustrations expressed by the black community are valid. So what's truly needed is for us to address this situation instead of throwing tantrums and arguing over the internet, because that really does not solve anything. We need to address these biases and create spaces where all black women, regardless of their skin tone or hair texture, are celebrated. As Africans, we need to recognize that this is not just an American issue. We need to build our own platforms to celebrate African beauty, African music, and African culture in all its shades and forms, because waiting for the West to fix this problem won't solve it for us. The only reason I decided to get on here and speak about this topic is because I don't like the fact that Americans cover our media for us. You know, we need more people like me, you know. So a lot of us need to start commenting on African media and criticizing it. Come on, where are y'all? The world needs to hear about us. And I'm only jumping into this wagon of the conversation because I want my channel to grow. This topic does not interest me. Like, I'm glad Tyla is doing her thing. Let her do her thing. Let her succeed. However, there are deeper things we can talk about, you know, instead of like coming on here and talking about a celebrity. Like, why I don't care about these conversations, especially when it comes to African megastars, is because the guap, the money being generated from the success of these African megastars on the global stage isn't benefiting Africa. That money is circulating in the West, building their economy, and we as Africans are here fighting tooth and nail for African artists who gain success and don't even tour their own continent. Miss Tyla has not had a concert in South Africa since her success, and yet here we are. Burna Boy has performed on almost every continent but didn't perform in his home country for the longest time. People had to raise this issue. It feels like the global stage is more important than home for many artists. Why should we as Africans be out here on social media trying to protect people that are not even benefiting our economy? Like, the man behind these artists are white. Think they care? They don't care. Until African artists start reinvesting in their own countries, it's difficult to celebrate their success with full enthusiasm. There are obviously a few things Tyla has done. For example, taking away her Grammy from the mandem like that. Like, more girl. As well as this photo shoot right here. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about is this beef African Americans and Africans have on social media. What are we fighting for? Like, this uppity African trend going on social media seems to me as a trauma response, because once an American says anything about Africans, we are quick to justify just how modern we are. It's sort of like a, hey y'all, see, guys, your opinions are wrong. We have washing machines and TVs. We have always had access to technological items. We are not like China. These things aren't even manufactured here. That iPhone you're using contains material in there that is being mined by people, majority children in the Congo, who are being ill-treated. Y'all may not like it, but we are still far behind as a people. And arguing with Americans on the socials will not cultivate independence for your children and the future generations of Africans to come. How long will y'all run away from your countries to go find refuge elsewhere? When will we start uplifting each other by having thought-provoking conversations? Some of y'all are out here arguing with African Americans on socials, and you reside in America. Let's not forget that most of you Africans living abroad hated your African heritage growing up. Tyla isn't the first African to exude confidence on the global stage. The reason Americans feel as though they are superior to us is because we have laid that foundation for them. We roll out that red carpet for them. We need to stop trying to prove a point, because that screams, validate us. The inferiority complex showcases itself when we try to outshine each other. It shines through the need to be more significant than others, whereas the focus should be to decolonize the mind. How are we growing as a nation? How are we developing as a continent? And how are we expanding our minds and ourselves as individuals? If there was really a chance for money to be generated in Africa, these artists will not even think twice to go onto the global stage. They will stay here. But the reason Tyla is there is because she's trying to cater to a broader audience. Tyla did not even sell her merch in South Africa. So that's all I wanted to say about this. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you. See you on the next video. Ciao.